Welcome to the debate. When you first learn to ride a bike, nobody starts you off on a Rocky Mountain trail, right?
No, definitely not.
Right. They bolt on a set of training wheels. They completely isolate the mechanic of steering from the mechanic of balancing. And yeah, it feels clunky and rigid, sure, but that isolation keeps you from crashing while your brain figures out the basics.
True. But, if you leave those training wheels on for too long, you aren't really riding a bike anymore, are you?
Well,
You're just pedaling a very awkward tricycle. At a certain point, that rigid isolation actually prevents you from feeling the fluid dynamics of leaning into a turn.
and that exact friction brings us to our focus today, early language acquisition. Specifically, we're looking at the pedagogical approach in Unit 1, Lesson 3. We are asking the central question: does foundational language instruction actually require rigid structural categorizations? Or does isolating language into these little mechanical boxes just ruin the natural flow of communication?
Right.
Based on the text's exercises, the alphabetization, proper nouns, syllable counting, I argue that cognitive scaffolding, those training wheels, is absolutely vital.
And I'm taking the stance that hyper-focusing on mechanics right out of the gate fractures language into, disconnected data points. It strips away the actual human context.
Let's ground this in the source material then. The lesson puts a massive emphasis on grammatical categorization. It forces learners to visually distinguish proper nouns, like Melanie or New Delhi,
Right.
with capital letters versus common nouns like doctor or student in lowercase. To me, that is necessary cognitive scaffolding.
I understand the theory behind lowering cognitive load, I really do. But look at how it plays out in practice here. The text has them rote memorizing isolated letters,
Which they need.
but just A-I-K out of nowhere, and obsessing over arbitrary spelling variations. Is it Catherine with an A or Catherine with an E, green or green? When you isolate the mechanics to that degree, you aren't teaching communication anymore.
Oh, come on.
You're teaching a data sorting game.
But visual sorting is just one piece of the puzzle, right? You see this exact same rigid isolation in how the material handles sound. The lesson makes learners physically count syllables.
Ugh, the clapping.
Yes, the clapping. Chef gets a 1, banker is 2, architect is 3, and photographer is 4. On the surface, sure, it feels like a math equation, but the mechanism behind it is critical.
Critical how? Because clapping out photographer feels entirely removed from how human beings naturally speak to one another.
Because it literally rewires the brain's phonetic processing. English is a stress-timed language.
Well, yes, but
If you don't force a learner to physically stop and map the beats in a long word, they might try to give every single vowel equal weight, which makes them unintelligible. The counting isn't busy work, it's a mechanical tool used to build an internal metronome.
okay, building an internal metronome makes sense in a vacuum. But think about what happens when that clinical isolation bleeds into actual human conversation.
What do you mean?
Well, the text features a conversational model where a man introduces himself. He says, "Hello, I'm John Bello." And the immediate mandated response from the other speaker is, "Excuse me, how do you spell that?"
Right, yes.
Forcing him to say B-E-L-L-O. That is wildly unnatural. It elevates orthography, the written spelling system, over genuine human connection. You're turning a polite greeting into a spelling bee.
I actually struggled with that dialogue at first, too. It definitely feels a bit robotic, but then I looked at the practical utility of why the authors included it. The lesson deliberately introduces names with immense phonetic ambiguity.
Okay.
Take Lee, and Lee. Out loud, they sound completely identical. If you don't build the mechanical reflex to clarify spelling letter by letter right away, you fail in real-world environments.
I won't deny the utility of spelling accuracy. If you're a bank teller, sure, you need the right Lee. But look at the framing of the lesson.
The goal section?
Yes, the core goal printed in bold right at the top is simply spell names. When the primary objective of meeting another human being is reduced to spelling, you strip away all the social nuance. Language is supposed to connect us, not turn us into human dictation machines.
So we're really looking at the exact same foundational tools, the alphabet, the capitalization, the syllables, but drawing completely different conclusions. You're seeing the isolation of mechanics as a barrier to authentic rhythm.
Exactly. And you're seeing it as the essential architecture that makes fluency possible in the first place.
Which really highlights a beautiful tension in linguistics. We constantly have to evaluate if a new language is a set of rigid codes to be cracked or, a living current that you just have to jump into.
And maybe the answer depends on whether you're just trying to process data or actually attempting to make a friend.
A great distinction. There is clearly much more to unpack in how we balance structural rules with conversational authenticity based on this material. But we will leave it to you to consider where that balance lies.